Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I pulled out this page map sketch from February of 2020, as well as this collection from Simple Stories called Retro Summer. I did pick this up on the warehouse sale, so I didn't have a lot of embellishments, so I turned to Simple Stories digital collections, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. I really liked the background part of this sketch, but my photos did not work for it. And I'm going to show you in this video how you can change up the photo placement, but keeping that background and making a completely different layout than what you see in the sketch. I love using sketches and I use them for every single one of my layouts that I create. Sometimes I follow those sketches exactly the way that they are, and sometimes I use them as a jumping off point, which is what I did here. I started out by trimming down some of the paper that I knew I was going to use. I was able to pull in a majority of the paper from the collection. However, that yellow paper on the background did come from my stash because I felt like I needed something else and there just wasn't enough of the B-sided paper that I really enjoy. I think that the yellow complements the yellow that's in this collection. It doesn't match it exactly, but it works really well. I think also because of the small pattern that is on this yellow paper, it kind of reminds me of waves, which this layout is about being in the pool. Now, as you can see here, the placements of my photos are completely different than what the sketch calls for. I definitely followed the right-hand side of the sketch with the 4x6 photo as well as the 4x4 and 3x4 photo, but on the left-hand side of the layout, I went in a completely different direction. I also knew that I was going to need a flip-flap for this layout, so I went ahead and looked through the 4x6 cards and I found this really pretty card that has the word summer on it. I love the pattern paper in the background. It looks kind of like a newsprint, and then it has the pink polka dots on it as well as the word summer. I noticed that the striped paper that I was going to use on the left-hand side of the layout was going to be covered up and it wasn't going to fit properly. So I decided to pull out this paper instead because the stripes were a little bit smaller. I was struggling with how much of the photos I wanted on the right-hand side of the layout versus the left, as well as trying to figure out what size I needed to cut down that yellow paper. I do decide to cut off 2 inches and add it over on the left-hand side of the layout, leaving 10 inches on the right. I was also trying to figure out how much of the pink paper I wanted on the left versus the right. I do love a great page map sketch, but one of the fallbacks is that there is no measurements on it, so you do kind of have to guess. I was using the photo sizes to determine how much of the pink I wanted on the left and right. I do end up splitting it down the middle and have 6 inches on the left and 6 inches on the right. Of course, I'm going to try to gut my paper as much as possible, so I did decide to go ahead and cut down this yellow paper. I knew that I wanted to gut it because this collection did come from the warehouse sale, so I didn't have the entire collection, as well as I didn't have multiple pieces of the pattern paper, so I was trying to save as much of the pattern paper that I could so that I could use it on other layouts. I didn't cut a lot out, but just that little spot I can absolutely use for another layout. And then for the left-hand side of the layout, I did cut that yellow piece down as well because I knew that the pink paper was going to cover up a majority of it, so I just needed a small little square on the top and bottom. And once I add that pink paper down, you're not even going to be able to tell that I cut that yellow paper apart. I then added the blue wave paper over to the far left, and I'm going to finish that off with the striped paper, or I guess that's more of like bricks or blocks. I do like the fact that I was able to get 2 different sizes on that, and I think that it looks really nice. I also realized that I needed another stripe on the right-hand side, so I did go ahead and pull out that stripe that I had planned to use on the left, and I also pulled out my wave border punch. This one is retired, but if I can find it, I will post it below. I know you guys like to ask the questions of where I get my border punches from. I do have a lot of retired border punches, and these are one of those things that are never going to be purged. I use them so often, and I think that the border punch adds such a great touch to most layouts. And this one has some holes in it, so it makes it pretty easy to add the stitching to that border. I decided that I would go ahead and trim down my photos a little bit on the left just to give it a little more breathing room and being able to span it out. However, I did remember after I cut the photos down that the photo on the right needed a 4x6 flip flap, so I couldn't cut that one down. It doesn't line up, but I'm perfectly okay with it. I don't even think anyone is going to notice. I went ahead and pulled out my T-square ruler and added these photos down, and as I'm doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about these photos. I traveled a lot for work when I was a trainer. I traveled all over the state of Florida, usually 2 or 3 days at a time. That meant that I was able to stack up a ton of reward points at the Hilton. I had so many reward points that I wanted to use some of them up because I wasn't even able to use all of them for the vacations that I was taking. I did a little research and found that the Hilton Orlando, which is only about an hour from me, had an amazing pool and water area. So I booked a staycation and we honestly checked in, spent the entire day at the pool, stayed the night, and spent the entire next day at the pool. And that is all we did. We enjoyed lots of fun drinks from the bar and just had an amazing staycation. One of my friends came over that lived locally and hung out with us on one of the days. She didn't stay the night, but she enjoyed the pool with us as well. So it was definitely one of the benefits of traveling for work. I started to pull out the embellishments, and like I said, I did pick this up from the Simple Stories warehouse sale. They have a deals section on their website that you can pick up some older collections, and they're usually bundled together with some paper and embellishments that are left over. I pulled out the chipboard pieces as well as some of the pieces from the sticker books, but it definitely was not enough to complete my layout. I knew I would have to go off camera for this next part, so I decided to go ahead and poke my stitching holes and pick out my thread so I could do both the stitching and the hybrid part of this layout all together. I decided that I was going to add some pink stitching over on the right hand side, and when the paper transitions into the blue, I decided that I would do the blue stitching over on the far left. And then I also pulled out some white thread to add to the border strip over on the right, since it was such a colorful piece and I knew that the white would really pop against all of those bright colors. I did start my stitching on my layout, but of course I'm going to do most of it off camera. And then I get to do the fun hybrid part of this layout. I'm going to go ahead and send that over to the silhouette, and then I'm going to slow the video down here so that you can see all of that fabulous stitching that I did off camera. Like I said, I added that blue over on the far left and then the pink and the white on the border strip. I really do love how much the stitching adds detail to the layout. So let's talk a little bit about the hybrid part of this layout. I'm super excited. Recently, I had posted a layout from Doodlebug where I was getting low on some of the embellishments. I'll link it below for you guys if you haven't checked it out yet. One of my amazing followers told me that Simple Stories also had some of their digital collections, which I did not know about. And I went on the hunt to check out their website. So I really do appreciate when you guys comment things like that, because if I don't know about it, maybe some other people don't know about it as well. Simple Stories has a digital section on their website, and a ton of their collections are on there, to include this one, as well as lots of Disney collections. And I can't wait to dip my toe into pairing up the digital collections with some of the pieces that I also have. On the website, you can purchase the digital collection kit. That is $10.99, and it includes the papers as well as the sticker sheet and some of the embellishments. This is all digital collections. You also can purchase the embellishment bundle, and they run either $6.99 or $7.99. The embellishment bundles are going to include things like the washi tape, the foam stickers, the brads, the bits, the ephemera, the chipboard stickers, things like that. Again, all digital collections. So I only purchased the embellishment collection because I knew that I just needed to bulk up my embellishments. I had already purchased a majority of the pieces from the warehouse sale, so I had gotten a great discount on that. And then by adding this $6.99 purchase, I was able to beef up my embellishments for this collection. The word poolside and the word vacation comes from the foam stickers, and because I had printed them digitally, I was able to make them the size that I needed for my layout, which is an extreme plus for creating hybrid layouts. I am so happy that I went down this hybrid path. This all started about a year ago with Kelly Bell Designs when I wanted to create a layout for Splash Mountain. I made my embellishments way too big and I made a ton of mistakes on it. But now a year later, and I'm learning that all of these other companies, to include Doodlebug and Simple Stories, which are collections that I absolutely love, I can pair my digital collections with items that I am purchasing at a discounted rate, and it's really making scrapbooking so much more affordable. You can purchase an entire collection from Simple Stories for less than $20 and have all of the pieces that you need to create a layout. I've showed you guys multiple ways on how I use just an 8.5 by 11 regular printer to make double page layouts. You do not need a wide format printer, and most of the time you could probably get away with the printer that you're using as long as you are using that presentation paper, because that does truly make a big difference. Now, I will say that I am absolutely in love with my printer, and I am so glad that Nicole influenced me to purchase that. It was a little bit of an investment, but totally worth it if you're getting into this digital hybrid game of scrapbooking. I also was able to take the brads from this collection. So the summer brad, as well as the pink polka dot with the newspaper print, those were originally just supposed to be little tiny brads. I printed them out at a 1-inch circle and put them in my bottle caps. So I was able to change the entire look of that embellishment from a small little brad to a 1-inch bottle cap. I pulled out the sticker sheet that came with this collection as well to add in a couple of other pieces. And I think that that is what really brings this layout together. Even though the colors don't match exactly, it doesn't really matter. They are in the same color family, and when you're working with a collection that has a ton of bright colors on it, especially similar to the water paper that's over on the left-hand side, there are multiple shades of that blue in that water paper. So the fact that my Poolside title is not the exact same color as the teal that's in that water paper doesn't really matter, because it all plays in well together. So I would encourage you guys to check out some digital collections. It has opened my eyes up to so many different possibilities, and I'm so excited to see what I can bring. I did pull out some enamel dots and added them around the layout as well, and then realized that I probably wanted my flip-flap to open to the left instead of the right, so I changed that out. But then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did even print my journaling before I sent it to the silhouette to cut out. So I have my date, which I'm super proud of, as well as my journaling. My journaling says, "All those long drives around the state of Florida for work finally paid off." Literally. I cashed in my rewards points for a quick escape to the Hilton Orlando. It was one night, but we soaked up every minute poolside. Sometimes a little break close to home is exactly what you need. And then I have the date of August 3rd, 2019. All right, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration to include a ton of hybrid layouts, because I'm super excited about that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.